Okay, this video will be about misconceptions of Tommy John surgery. I have 5 of them, and I've saved the one that I'm going to get the most frustrated about for last, so that hopefully I force myself to stay on script and keep it as brief as I can without rambling. But anyway, let's get into the misconceptions. Actually, hang on a second. Okay, now we're ready. Misconception number 1. Tommy John will make you throw harder. This is probably the most common of all of these misconceptions, and the one that I've heard the most since my surgery. It is because it's not an uncommon result. That's not the misconception. A lot of pitchers do throw harder after Tommy John surgery, especially younger pitchers who have it. But the reason for this is not the surgery itself. The rehab for Tommy John surgery entails a lot of strengthening of the shoulder and forearm. And that, along with a year out of competition to work on strength and mechanical flaws and mechanical efficiency and other things like that, all of those put together can definitely cause an increase in velocity upon return to pitching. And I think that that is, again, why this is such a common misconception. But it's not the surgery itself that causes it, it's the work that you do after the surgery and leading up to throwing again. And it's not a guarantee by any means. While many pitchers probably do experience an increase in velocity after the surgery, it is not a guarantee by any means that you will throw harder after the surgery. And this leads into misconception number 2. Kids will have Tommy John surgery preemptively. This claim will go around the internet occasionally, and it's usually in one of 2 forms. Either the logic is, well, most pitchers end up having Tommy John anyway, so you might as well just get it over with. And the other is the hypothetical situation where a parent has their kid get Tommy John so that they will throw harder after the surgery. There's a pretty simple reason why I think that this has never occurred and never will, and that is that I don't think there's a surgeon who would perform this surgery on somebody who didn't need it, especially a child who didn't need it. It's a strange one because someone said this to me after my surgery. They commented on a post or something that I made saying like, oh, parents will have their kids get Tommy John preemptively these days, and I didn't respond to it because it was stupid, and also it was after I had surgery and I was on a lot of drugs. It's just, it's wild to me that people think that that is something that might occur. Anyway, on to misconception number 3. It is always a blowout on one pitch. I think every baseball fan has probably seen some level of a pitcher getting hurt where they throw a pitch, usually a bad one, yell in pain, grab some part of their arm, and yell for a trainer. I think that that's the image that a lot of people have of tearing your UCL. It happens on one pitch, boom, it's gone. But there's another way it can happen, and how it happened to me is that over the course of a couple of weeks, my forearm kind of just got tighter and tighter, and I couldn't work that tightness out. The tightness turned into pain, and eventually the pain became too much to bear. I did have a pitch where it hurt a lot, and here it is. You can see the pain on my face. I threw another pitch after that, and that ended the outing. And then I didn't throw again after that because I was in a lot of pain, and I realized that I needed to take some time off from throwing, and eventually learned that I needed Tommy John. But not a hugely important misconception, but one that came up a lot for me and that I was asked about a lot after my surgery. So it felt worth including at the very least. Misconception number 4. Throwing a certain pitch will cause elbow problems or Tommy John surgery. Now, I understand the origins of this one. I think that this came up a lot for people in Little League where you knew somebody or your coach told you a story about a kid who threw too many curveballs too early on and had arm problems. And I'm not saying that I think you should be throwing breaking balls in Little League. I don't think that that's a good thing. I think that the issue is probably both with kids throwing breaking balls and also with kids being overused at a very young age. If you throw a good curveball and you're very good at getting hitters out at that age, you're probably going to pitch more. You might pitch a lot more depending on the moral fiber of your coach and how they weigh the value of Little League wins versus the value of the arm health of a kid in Little League. You would think it would be an easy choice, but apparently sometimes it isn't. On that note, I don't think Little Leaguers are probably coordinated enough to throw any off-speed pitch safely, but I don't think that is the sole cause of arm problems. Overuse is probably a much bigger issue than the pitches themselves. There is some data that I know of talking about pitch stress according to different pitch types. And what they found, basically, from my reading of it, was that changeups are slightly less stressful than everything else, marginally but significantly. Fastballs, curveballs, and sliders are all roughly equivalent in the amount of stress they put on your arm, in decreasing order, I believe. Fastballs, then sliders are a little less, then curveballs are a little less, and then changeups are a bit less than that. One that comes up a lot, even in pro ball, is splitters, and I couldn't actually find any data on that, so I don't truly know. In general, the measured highest stress on the elbow from any pitch is usually a fastball because it is thrown the hardest, and that causes stress. It is basically just one of the inherent risks involved in pitching. And that will lead us into my personal favorite point here, because it is about me a little bit, is misconception number 5. Throwing a certain way, for example, sidearm like me, will cause Tommy John surgery or elbow problems. And again, I think that this stems somewhat from things you were told in Little League. Throwing sidearm is bad for you, because it is oftentimes bad form. I will not argue with that. And I get it. My motion looks painful. I understand why this looks painful to the average person. We can talk about why that is another time. That being said, I've thrown this way for 9+ years, 9.5 years, and I have not had an elbow problem in that time up until this big obvious one, which I would say is a pretty good track record for pretty much any pitcher, or at least it's about average. I would understand where this comes from if UCL tears were a really rare thing in baseball, but they happened all the time to guys who threw from lower arm slots. However, they are incredibly common. They happen all the time. They even happen to guys who throw normally. Catchers need Tommy John surgery. They have compact arm actions, throw over the top, that should, in theory, be much safer. But it still happens. So I don't really see what the stigma is, apart from, again, stuff you were told in Little League. Again, this is personal for me, and I don't understand. What it comes down to, unfortunately, is the fact that throwing a baseball is incredibly stressful and puts a lot of wear and tear on your arm. The human body just wasn't made to throw a 5-ounce ball over and over again at such a high intensity. Side note, I would actually argue that the human body is made to throw things, but that's a different argument. One of the inherent risks of pitching is that it's really stressful. It puts a lot of wear and tear on your arm, and you might get hurt. In fact, some would say it's likely that you'll get hurt. You can do the best you can to take care of your arm and limit the amount that you throw, but it'll always be a risk. In fact, it's for this reason that, looking back at my career, I'm actually very thankful that my dad didn't let me pitch. For the most part in Little League, I threw an inning here or there when the team needed it, and I didn't pitch in high school, even though I couldn't really hit, and I was probably going to end up as a pitcher if I wanted to keep playing. But not pitching for all of those years probably saved me some wear and tear on my arm. My first competitive pitches weren't until my freshman year of college, when I was much older and more physically capable of handling the stress of pitching. And I think that helped me not really have to deal with any injuries up until this point. That being said, obviously it did catch up with me eventually. But I think that, thankfully, that kept me out of harm's way at a time when my body was more vulnerable. Anyway, that is it for the misconceptions. I will try to keep my eyes out for more of them as people inevitably say them to me. If you guys enjoyed this, let me know. Check out the rest of the vlog series on my rehab if you haven't already, and let me know if there's any other aspect of this that you would like me to cover, in case that I haven't thought of it already. But for now, that's it, and I will see you when I see you.